future is here, unfolding right before us. There's no question that the pace of change today is absolutely extraordinary, greater than at any time in human history. Yet there's a great deal that we control. And the single thing that we can control the most is our attitude, how we approach it. We have a choice, a fundamental choice. We can shy away from all of the change which is unfolding and see that all the challenges, and there are real challenges. Or we can embrace the future and the extraordinary opportunities that it brings. A wise man said that as long as the universe is changing, there are opportunities. And today, that is the case more than ever before. And as it happens, your skills and your capabilities are extraordinarily relevant for the times ahead. That's what we'll discover a little bit this morning. So let's begin our journey on a beautiful desert island. Imagine you're a castaway. You're far away from anywhere, and it's a beautiful place, but you don't have access to trade publications, to your peers, to the internet, to the news. You have no idea of what's going on in the world. So how long would it take for the value of your expertise and your knowledge to fall by half as the world changes around you and you're left behind? Would it be 10 years? 5 years? Perhaps a lot shorter? And certainly what we can know for sure is that this half-life of knowledge is shrinking all the time. Back in the 70s or the 80s, we used to be able to do a degree and live off the fruits of what we'd learned for the next decade. Yet today, by the time you've got a certificate, a degree, it's already out of date. By any measure, the amount of information produced, the number of patents, the number of publications, it's accelerating. And so we need to have deep expertise to succeed in this world. Now, I'd like you to think back into the past when you bought your first mobile phone. I'd like you to think when it was and what it looked like. Can anybody recall that far back? And for some of you, if you were a leader, it would have been a nice chunky object, one which is not so easy to slip into your pocket. And it's it's not that long ago that this happened. They were only just begun, fairly recently we've begun to be connected. If it would have been over 20 years ago, that would have been something that would be the nature of a mobile phone. Now I'd like to give away a copy of my book, Living Networks. Whoever can tell me the year that the web browser was invented. Anybody care to hazard a guess? A year. Who said 92? It's not quite, but close. I'll give it to you. Congratulations. 93, actually. It was underdeveloped in 92, but 93 was when it got to the market. So 20 years ago was the first time anybody had ever pulled up a web browser and started to explore the wonderful world of the internet. And it's so recent. And so we bring these two things together, this deep expertise that's required, plus the connectivity. And this creates an extraordinary new landscape in which you are becoming increasingly central. Now, as a futurist, I have to apologize because I cannot tell you who to put your money on next Tuesday at 3 p.m. on the Flemington race. That's not the job of a futurist. There are some soothsayers and some fortune tellers and people who play tricks with cards who can maybe try to tell you. But the job of a futurist is not to predict the future, it is to help people to think usefully about the future. We don't know what the future will come to pass, but we can. There's a lot of methodologies and approaches that can help us to think usefully so that we can act better in the present. And what futurists do is to distinguish between the trends and the uncertainties. And there are massive uncertainties, but there are many trends that we can see and we perceive and we can understand in order to embrace the opportunities that are coming. So what we're going to do this morning is look, first of all, at 4 domains in which there are major trends. We'll look at technology, society, changes in population, and changes in business. And these are some of the things that are changing, things that we can know about what is coming to pass. And then we're going to look at the things that are the success factors, the things which will drive value things which will picture the center of the world, networks, relationships, the nature of value creation, and finally, driving success. So let's begin on the journey by looking at technology. And what the most extraordinary thing is about technology is the pace of exponential growth. And human brains are not very well geared to understand this. If something increases in its capacity 50% in a year, which is pretty much the case for storage and bandwidth and processing power, that means after 5 years we have 8 times the capabilities. After 10 years we have 60 times the capabilities, and after 20 years we have 3,000 times the capabilities. And this is what's the underlying nature of the things that's driving our business and society today, this extraordinary growth from 100 in 2013 to over 1 million in the years to come. These are the things that are driving change across all domains. So we are connected as ever before. It was in the last 20 years we've started to see these things. Anybody remember what happened on the July 11th, 2008? What was important on that date was not that the iPhone 3G was released in Australia, but that was the day that Australia's telcos deigned to give us some sane mobile data plans. And not long before that, I was out to dinner with a friend. It was a business dinner, and there was a conversation, there was a disagreement, and somebody pulled out their phone to look up the answer in Google. So this was before July 11th, 2008. So I was impressed. I said, "What's your mobile plan?" He said, $950 a month. And we forget, it was so natural for us now to pull out our phones and to look up our maps and find our way around and to find out what the latest tweets are and to look up answers to questions when we have questions. Yet, it's only in the last 5 years that this is something which is natural to those that don't have a $1,000 a month budget for their connectivity. This is so recent, the fact that we are connected in this way. As you may have seen, the premier quiz show in the United States, Jeopardy, was won by a computer. So this is a game show which is quiz show based on illusion and wordplay and games. It's not very simple questions. You've got to understand what is the nature of the questions, and now computers are beating humans. This is the capabilities, overlay that exponential growth. What are the capabilities in terms of, I think it is not that long before we'll be able to pick up a phone, have a conversation with a customer service representative on, for example, a technical call, and we won't be able to tell whether it's a human or a computer. The amount of storage is exploding. So earlier this year, scientists showed that in 1 gram of DNA, you can store 700 terabytes of data. And that basically means you can watch HD video from the moment you're born to if you live 100 years long. And so that's what you can be able to fit in your phone. This is this extraordinary pace of growth. But what is more important in a way than all of this explosion of connectivity and processing power and storage is the fact the interfaces between machines and humans. So we have, for example, Google Glass coming out soon. We'll have glasses when we look out in the world. We'll have information laid over what we are looking at. So we're moving beyond the mouse, which is old, and the other interfaces we have to be able to get new ways, new insights as we look around the world around. And this is when we start to get technology that is really useful. So at a cocktail party, for example, this evening, you won't need to remember people's names. We'll have a little bubble next to their head which shows what their names are. And so this is where we start to get the technology that is really useful. But going beyond that is really where we can, and this is no longer the science fiction, is where thoughts can control our machines. This quadriplegic woman is for the first time in her life picking up a drink and taking a drink from a can. And this is something which is obviously of extraordinary benefit to those who are physically handicapped. Yet this enables all of us. These are the kinds of technologies that are coming very soon where literally we can think and the computers will obey us. These are the possibilities that we have. And you can see the joy on this woman's face as for the first time she is able to control her world through her thoughts. This is something where we control not just our bodies, not just to pick up things around us, but we can indeed control the world around us. These are the possibilities that are coming. And just the last point around technology is this is not just about the information technology, it's about the biological technologies. This exponential curve, so Moore's law, which is what I showed you before, straight line there is the pace of change which I showed in that original chart. We're seeing the biological science is exploding far faster. What used to cost $100 million just over 10 years ago is going down to actually less than $1,000, and soon will be $100 to be able to get insights into our personal genome, to be able to get personalized medicine, which are relevant just to ourselves individually, to be able to shape who we are. This is the control we have, these extraordinary opportunities that we have. Now, if we look at society, there is one dominant trend, and that is very simply that we expect more. We expect more on every single front. We expect it in terms of the opportunity. And opportunity is a really fundamental driver. So we can understand that in terms of Australia, but if you look at that on a global scale, there are only 10 million people on the planet who are over $1 million in financial assets. Yet there are over 1 billion people on the planet who earn less than $1 a day. And the hunger of those people in the middle who can see for the first time the opportunities, the possibilities of improving themselves is absolutely driving change, absolutely driving new economy moving forward. People expect opportunity. People expect excellence. And it's not that long ago that we used to be content with a snag on a barbie and a stubby of beer. Now we're all becoming wenophiles, able to get more and more discernment and understand the palate, understand the distinctions between different wines. We're getting more and more discerning. That expectation of excellence means that the service that was good enough 5 years ago is no longer good enough today. And what's good enough or even great today will not be good enough 5 years from now. Our expectations are continuing to go up over time. So how many people are on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn? Hands up. Thank you. And congratulations, because you've helped Australia be #1 in the world in the use of social networks. And this is important because of our geographical distance. This is something where we are able to connect. And this is part of our expectation. We expect to participate. We expect to have a voice. We expect to be heard. People no longer complain by calling a company to say things were going wrong. They complain to their friends in a very public space. There's this expectation we can participate, this expectation that our voice will be heard more broadly. And there is an expectation that information will flow. And one of those domains is in medical information. So routinely now, doctors have patients coming in them with big piles of printouts, people who've done their research, and people who, in fact, around very specific maladies may, in fact, know more than the doctor or research more about that. How can a doctor keep across everything? So most doctors are horrified by this. They say this is information which people don't understand, which will abuse, and there are some validity to that, but this is reality. People expect to be informed. People expect to be able to understand. People want to spend the time to understand what they're doing, and this absolutely shifts the doctor-patient relationship. And this absolutely, in the same way, shifts the professional-client relationship and the advisor-client relationship. This is an absolutely different world, and people expect transparency. They expect information to flow, and FOFA is just an expression. It's a manifestation of this, and this is not going to go away. These expectations are absolutely increasing over time. Now, if we look at population, and just to explain these little charts, if you can't see at the back, this shows the demographic profiles of a few countries moving forward. On the left is males, on the right is females. And the top bar is the oldest, 80 plus, and the youngest bars are the children, up to 4. Top left is Australia, top right is China, bottom left is Japan, bottom right is India. And in fact, Australia is one of the best population profiles of developed countries around the world. We have some pretty decent birth rate, as we'll see in a moment. We also have some pretty decent immigration. And whilst we are going to have lots of older people, we still have quite a few people who are going to be productive. China is starting to get very old, and with the big bands around the people about to retire. Japan is we have to wonder about the future of Japan given its demographic profile. It simply does not have the younger people replacing that, and it's a very similar profile in Southern Europe. Spain, Italy, Greece have very similar demographic profiles, yet they do have immigrants to replace them. Again, creating cultural shifts. And in India, in Philippines, and some of the countries which will remain young, and India's population will overtake that of China moving forward. So some very different demographic profiles, but absolutely, while Australia will be aging, we still will have some youth to hold us. So look at birth rate. This red line shows birth rate in Australia from the 30s. And remember the baby boom? I think a lot of us came out then or a little bit afterwards. And it went down and down and down. And then, for whatever reason, over the last 5 years, people are starting having more babies. So we're close to replacement rate now. So if you've seen lots of prams around, this is in fact true. We are having babies. We are pretty good procreators. In fact, Australia, New Zealand's ahead of us. We're actually just about to overtake the US as that's coming down, but we're doing very well in the breeding stakes as it goes by developed countries. We're still not at replacement rate. And clearly, immigration is still driving the country, and there's possible we're going to see lower immigration moving forward, yet that is absolutely what is going to drive Australia's future moving forward. This is one of the uncertainties. There is massive uncertainties around immigration, not least through social attitudes, the politics of the day and how that shifts, but these are some of the drivers of the growth of our country moving forward. And if we look at the three drivers of population, births, immigration and migration, and deaths. So for the last 200 years, every decade that passes, our life expectancy increases by 2 years. So this is a trend that might increase, which would mean that in 50 years from now, we'd have a life expectancy of around 90 at birth. Yet, this is a possibility where this could actually soar massively up. Looking at the biological science that we looked at, we could actually have extraordinary growth in population. And that chart, we might see many, many, many older people if we start to extend our life. And there's many possibilities from that. And the technologies is going to start to change that. So one of the real aspects of technology is how it is used in aged care, how people can stay in their homes longer through connectivity, being able to use intelligent pills, monitoring people so that we can monitor people's health, creating extraordinary amounts of data from individuals as they grow old, often in their homes. Let's go on to look at business, the final of our trends. It's instructive to look at the work of a gentleman called Ronald Coase. He died a few weeks ago at the age of 102, a rich old life. And it was fortunate that he lived so long because earlier in his career, back in 1937, he went in a steamship across from England to the United States to study what was happening in business in America. And he wrote a paper called The Nature of the Firm, which described, what happened in organizations. And it was almost 60 years later that he won the Nobel Prize for Economics for his research. So the insight that he had, his insight was that the reason organizations exist is because of transactions costs. There is a cost to making a transaction, to buying something or to selling something, whether it's buying a paperclip or creating a new product. And so it makes sense to have that within a single organization. In a connected world, that absolutely disappears. And we're creating this modular economy where the economy is based on smaller and smaller modules of value creation. Back in the middle of the last century, if you wanted the best motorbike, you'd buy British. Have the throatiest roars, they'd go the fastest, they were the best bikes on the road. Then the Japanese came and took over and slammed them. Yet today, the global center of motorcycle manufacturing is in the glorious city of Chongqing in western China, which is a bit smoggy, but at least it has some golden spires to make it look a bit prettier. And the reason that Chongqing beat the Japanese is they have a completely different approach to manufacturing. The Japanese have this control mentality, saying, okay, everything, our suppliers need to create everything exactly the right way, down to the micron level. And if you don't perform as we've specified, you're out. In Chongqing, they take a completely different approach. They say, Okay, we'll get together our suppliers and we're going to say, all right, we want to create a motorbike which goes around this fast, it has these safety features, it looks a bit like this. Okay, you guys get together and do it. And so they collaborate, they work together, they find ways in which the modules that they create come together to be able to create a bike. And it creates an extraordinarily efficient process. The average export price of a motorcycle from China is just over $100. Massively different approach by this modular approach to the economy. Now, this idea of breaking down, this way where you get more efficient, more connected. Has anybody heard of Uber or used Uber? Great. And this is, this allows dudes like this to get in this beautiful black car limo. So the dynamics of the limousine business is that you go and you pick up people at airports and take them to important events and you're very nice to them, and it costs a lot of money. But there's a lot of time when you're not shuttling these important people back and forth. So you've got some downtime, you have some availability. So now if you create a marketplace where you say, well, I'm prepared to pay a little bit more than a taxi for a very nice ride, and we've got some availability so you can bring that together. So suddenly, all of this availability gets tapped, gets matched with demand. We're seeing this whole economy emerge, this whole idea of this collaborative or sharing economy where anything which isn't being used now has ways to match that with availability, creating far more efficient. This modules being brought together in an efficient economy. And this is being applied across all sorts of domains. So legal services is a very interesting one. You've still got some nice big law firms around the corner here, very plush offices, yet there's other approaches which are emerging. Axiom Law, which are shown on the left-hand side, based in New York now with offices all over the world. It's in fact, all of its lawyers work from home. There are essentially contracts that come in, and they are in fact one of the fastest growing companies in the United States, and they are rivaling in size some of the large law firms in the United States. They're saying, we have a completely different approach. Why should you pay for, when you go to a lawyer, to a city lawyer, in the city of Melbourne, for example, you are paying for all of the rent of those glorious buildings. You are paying for the cappuccinos that you get and come in. You're paying for all of this infrastructure. Why? Do you really want to pay for that? If you go through a different model where everybody's distributed and working from home can come in and visit you in your offices, far more efficient, far more effective in creating a challenge to this disrupting these old models. This on this right-hand side is a London-based law firm, Berwin Leighton Paisner, which said, well, all of our clients are actually, they have their, for example, their in-house lawyers are going on maternity leave or long service leave or getting sick or whatever it may be, and they need a replacement to come in for a few months. So classically, they've gone to a law firm and hired somebody very expensively. They're saying, all right, no, we're going to become set up a recruitment arm where we'll get some lawyers who just want some contracts and come in. Far cheaper for you, far more effective. And because it is competitive to the law firm, they've spun it off into a new company. They're creating these entirely new models that challenge the old ones, spinning them off and creating new ways where law, yes, we still need legal services in a world dominated by law, but there's many new ways to be able to create that. So which takes us to some of the things that are the success factors in this world. Who recognizes this man? Who is it? Kevin Bacon. Now, a while ago now, back in the 90s, there was 3 students on a very snowy day in America who got a bunch of DVDs out. Well, actually, they were probably tapes in those days. And they watched a movie and it had Kevin Bacon in it, and they watched another movie and it also had Kevin Bacon in it. They said, he seems to be appearing in everything. So they worked out this thing, said they thought of an actor, they sort of thought of another film in which Kevin Bacon also acted, sort of another film which that actor acted, to see how many steps it would take to get to Kevin Bacon. And they appeared on The Daily Show and all of these other things being quizzed where the audience members would shout out an actor's name, and they would say, well, they acted with so-and-so, who acted with so-and-so, who acted with Kevin Bacon. And they proved that Kevin Bacon was the center of the Hollywood universe because he was so richly connected. Now, in fact, he is not. in fact, is around 770th. And Rod Steiger is number one, Christopher Lee, Dennis Hopper, Donald Sutherland, Harvey Cadel. These are the most connected people, where in just literally 2.5 steps from name any actor who's acted in any film in history, and you can get to these people in less than 3 hops, who is somebody that's acted with somebody. Now, this is the nature of networks. That's something we've discovered in the last couple of decades, the science of networks. Networks underpin just about every aspect of our world, from infrastructure to social networks, to the way organizations work, to the nature of business, in fact, to the nature of how cellular structure. Now, what the people who are highest on those stuff is their diversity, the diversity of their connection. So Christopher Lee may act in a horror film, in a romance, in a science fiction film, and they're very diverse. So the diversity of connections is what brings people closer and closer to the center of the universe. Now, this is enormously relevant today, where the diversity of your networks create value. This diagram is of communication within Deloitte, Australia, which is, in fact, one of the companies in the world which has the greatest uptake of the use of social media internally. Each of those little bands around the outside is a practice area, things like forensic or private or consulting or corporate reorganization. And the lines connecting, you can see in the middle, are all of the communication patterns you can see. It is, in fact, extraordinarily networked organization. All of the different practice areas are communicating with each other. And that is, as you probably know, not the case in many professional firms. Now, the nature of advice is you do need to draw on other experts. You do need to be connected to people who can draw in to be able to create value for your clients. And the diversity of those networks is what drives value. And what we're seeing more and more is this rise of networks and the diversity of networks driving value. Relationships, as you know, they're the heart of the universe, and in fact, in a more connected world, relationships are becoming more and more important. Now, I love using the example of surfing to illustrate the difference between knowledge and information. Knowledge is the capability to see a wave coming in, to catch the wave and to ride that in. That's knowledge. That's something we've developed over time. Information is a book that says this is how to surf, and it doesn't matter how many times you read it, it doesn't give you the ability to surf. So if you are dealing with your clients, this idea of this knowledge-based relationship is not something where you're giving people information, but you are literally giving them the ability to make better decisions, to act better, to surf the waves. And we are all living in a time of surfing the waves of change. And that is the role of relationships today, this idea of knowledge-based relationships. Ones where you are giving people, in the relationships, giving them knowledge to be able to do that. So if we look at the different styles of relationships, on the one end, people view you as a commodity. They're sensitive to price. They don't want to disclose much information. On the other side, they're a partner. And this applies not just to your client relationships, but also the relationships with all of the other advisors, the network, the people who are here today, the people who are beyond, the driving the real value of partnership. So the role of the leader is to be able to shift people over, so they have this partnership mentality. They are willing to disclose information. They're open to new opportunities. They have a high degree of trust. That's where the value resides. And because there is so much driving commoditization, unless you are continually pushing forward, you're driving that. So any professional has 2 aspects to how they must lead. They are leading their clients into these deep, rich, knowledge-based relationships, and they are leading their network, all of their connections, into building the partner relationships with the people in this room, the people beyond the InFocus network, the people who are able to provide the products to gain the insights and the expertise that can create value. So if we look at value creation in this world, a futures trading exchange is instructive to look at because it is absolutely a zero-sum game. For every contract, when it moves, there is a winner and there is a loser. It is a completely zero-sum game. So the nature of what we are moving into is a world where we are moving beyond these zero-sum games, moving to a world where both people create value together. This partnership, this way of working effectively. And this is happening in every domain of business. So for example, Nike are creating shoes. They are co-creating value with their customers. Their customers are helping to create the shoes, helping to design the shoes, creating the insights behind them. This is this idea of getting their users to create value. So in this case, of many examples, we're seeing business shift to this co-creation of value with users and with their clients. And now this idea of partnering is being able to say, how is it that you can connect with the people inside your organization, people beyond the organization, to be able to create value together? Where is the way that you can create value, create partnering? That is the whole source of value today. So finally, looking at success. And as we began by saying, the pace of change creates challenges and opportunities. So the only way you can control your destiny is to be as flexible as the world around you. And that's a big ask, given how much change there is in the world around us. Now, research shows that there is a couple of things that stand out, what drives high performance and value. And this is things which are becoming more and more relevant as the world changes around us. So they're not smarter or more expert or more social. There's two absolute things at the heart. They develop relevant expertise, as we said at the beginning, and they actively build diverse, rich networks. And so we're seeing that, in fact, the things that have driven your success up to today are the ones that will drive even more value moving forward in the future. Where the heart of success is creating value with others so that both create as much value as possible, moving beyond the zero sum, moving beyond the buy-sell, and being able to show people that value, to be able to demonstrate, be on that path of leadership, to take people to the point where they can see that value creation. Joseph Campbell was a comparative mythologist, and he looked at the many myths and stories of different cultures around our world. And he found there's a common thread, a common story, which is told in all cultures. That of what he called the hero's journey, the people that were challenged, who went forth to be able to, through all of the challenges, be able to find something of value and bring that back for others. And in this world of change, in the future that we are seeing, this hero's journey is extraordinarily relevant. We are all need to find our hero's journey, to be called, to hear that call, to be able to push us beyond to that path of greatness and possibility, to be able to go on that journey through those challenges to find what there is to be of value and to bring that back for ourselves and others. So I've looked at some of the drivers from technology, society, population, and business that are shaping our world, and some of the things we're shaping value below that, in networks, relationships, value creation, and success. Albert Einstein, in his older years, he was once approached by a journalist who came up to him and said, Professor Einstein, what is the most important scientific question we face? And he pondered for a moment. He said, the most important question we have is the universe a friendly place? And we can't know. There's no answer. We can't come up and say, yes, the universe is a friendly place or an unfriendly place, but we can believe it is so. We can believe that the universe is conspiring against us at every turn. Or we can choose to believe that the universe is a friendly place, that we'll embrace the possibilities we look for, and as we embrace the future, we will create opportunities for ourselves. So we can absolutely say that today the opportunities for those that embrace the future will absolutely explode, and I invite you to create an extraordinary future for yourself and those around you. Thank you.
What's called a technique called think, pair, group, share. So the first thing I'd like you to write down there is what were the top ideas that you got out of Ross's presentation that you might be able to use. There were some awesome ones there. I loved some of the things. co-creating value, and more importantly, developing your networks and creating relevant expertise that you could sell. So there's some of the things. Now, write those ideas down for yourself. And what I'd like you to do, table captains, work up at least one or two fantastic questions from your table when you go around. You've got plenty of time. The value of these presentations is really about working out what it means to you. So table captains, take control now. We'd like you to come up with at least one or two good questions from each table, and we're going to go to Q&A. We'll give you a few minutes to get organised, and then it's Q&A time with Ross.
Right. We were just wondering, in the future, you referred to a legal firm that didn't need an office and forms of communication. Where do you see that in our industry heading, and is our industry any different in terms of getting an address to operate?
It's, I think, it is potential. More and more people are going to be working, well, two things. One is from home, the other is from co-working spaces. So people want to get out of the home for all sorts of reasons. You know, you want to get out of the way of your spouse, you just want a change of scenery, you want to interact with some other people. So there is a role for an office, absolutely, and offices are not going to disappear. But what we are going to see is that there is this rise of co-working spaces where people can go in and find other fun people. You'll get spaces with different cultures around different suburbs where people can come in. It means you can actually be cost effective. You can not just have the people in your office around you, you can have a broader range of people. So that'll be one of the things that rises. But there is real value in spending physical time together, which is why offices won't disappear. So this is where mutual trust, where trust, mutual experience comes from, the social thing. Overall, we have got a long way to go in work being distributed and people working from different places around the world and from homes and these co-working spaces. But I think particularly for smaller operations, it makes a lot of sense to work together. But we do want to be as flexible as possible as well. We shouldn't necessarily work for specific hours and have to travel during commute time. We want to sometimes work from home. We want to. There's places where we can go and work out from a day a week if we don't want to avoid a long commute sometimes. So it's whatever works. I think that there is a real value in spending physical time together, particularly for smaller companies and operations. But we need to look out for the opportunities of being more flexible, because that's absolutely the direction of work.
Next question from the back.
Ross, firstly, thanks for that fantastic and very thought-provoking presentation. Our question was really this: we thought the concept of knowledge-based relationships, give more knowledge to our clients, empower them to make their own decisions. Interesting angle on that. But the fact that then decommoditises the relationship, if you like, and takes away the price sensitivity, creates a lot of stickiness in the relationship with the client, and makes a genuine partnership out of it. We thought that was a great opportunity to grow our business or strengthen our business, and we just wondered what your thoughts were specifically in the context of financial services, and in focus in particular, whether you had a bit more detail as to how to best go about that, and also I guess how to find the balance between that and perhaps going too far and giving away a little bit too much information.
Okay. There are quite a few resources on my website. So if you search for Developing Knowledge-Based Client Relationships, which is the title of my first book, there's a couple of chapters which you can download from there, and also some white papers which describe some of this in more detail. There's a few things. There's broadly this idea of knowledge-based relationships. There's a few things you are doing: adding value to information, adding value to capabilities, and adding value to decision making. And financial services is adding value to decision making. It's how do you help people to make a better decision for themselves, to enable them to make better decisions? And I think that this is, as you say, there are thoughts of risk. Well, if I'm enabling to do them all themselves, what is the role for me? But I think that particularly in this thing of enabling people to make better decisions for themselves, you can't go too far. You become a partner in being able to work with people and being able to do that. One of the diagrams, what I call this virtuous circle of knowledge-based relationships, where essentially you have to demonstrate that there is value to them being more open. That your clients must share with you who they are, what really drives them, who they are as people, the way in which they make decisions. And the only way they will be more open with you is to demonstrate there is value to them of sharing information. And ultimately that cycle of demonstrating value, them being more open, you understanding more of who they are as a person, what drives them in their ambitions, and also the way in which they make decisions. Because people make decisions in different ways. And, and you need, part of, I think, the skills and capabilities we need to develop is understanding decision-making styles. And then using that to personalize how you present your ideas and information to them. Because what will work for one person won't work for another one. So a lot of this flows through to, in terms of running a practice, is what are the tools and the processes and the skills in personalizing this presentation of information to help them make a better decision. So there's, as I say, you can download the chapters which provide a little more detail around that. But there's this whole cycle of helping them to understand why it is valuable for them to be more open, so you can understand them better, so that you can personalize them and actually help them go through that process in their mind of making the financial decisions which will drive their future forward.
Very good. Another question from the floor here. Captain, one over here. And one up the back. Adam, another one. Just here.
Question really is around asking the online generation. So you talked a lot about the fact that people are using mobile phones and smartphones a lot more. The question is, I suppose, is there an online generation, and what's that age bracket in terms of obviously new people coming on the scene have their phones and stuff, or about the aging population as well? Are they getting more online?
I personally tend to underplay generational change because I believe that it is far more about individual differences. I know a lot of not very young people who are amongst the most connected people in Australia in social media. And I had this great story. I was sitting next to somebody at dinner a little while ago. He's this 75-year-old guy who helps his children with the technology. And so I think that it is about differences in individuals far more than it is in generations. Yes, absolutely. People who are growing up with smartphones and so on, it is completely natural to them. It is different from somebody that hasn't grown up with the technologies. So I wouldn't put any lines on the sand there. But what absolutely is happening, and I don't have any statistics off the top of my head, but we are looking to say that well over half of over 65s are engaged online in various ways. Many of them on social networks, certainly using technology in various ways. What we're starting to see in the old retired people's homes, the conversations over coffee is, have you got your security software updated? It is now, I think, applies to everybody. People are using this in different ways. Young people, it is their conversation. They're moving beyond email to their conversations being over social networks in various ways, a different nature of using it. But I think we need to understand this is about almost everybody being engaged online. I think partly to your question, we do need to have different styles of engaging with people who are younger generational connected, and those are older. Though I would tend to, again, look to individual differences. There are some older people who will be just as engaged online. You just need to ask them and to see if that's what suits their style. And there are some younger people that, again, I've also encountered quite a few younger people that say, no, I'm not into that, prefer traditional styles of communication.
Up the back.
Thanks, Ross. We had a question, actually we've got two questions. Firstly, with change, with technology and how it changes so quickly, what's your key point and key idea in keeping up to date or even keeping ahead of it? And the second question, probably more importantly, is how do we become friends with Kevin Bacon?
Okay, the first question is, you do need to spend a bit of time each day just looking out at the world and looking out for what is new. And this is part of the whole dilemma between the urgent and the important. And it's never urgent to be able to find a little bit of what's the trends, broader trends, what's happening in technology or change. But it is important because if you add that up over a few years, you're simply left behind relative to other people. So there it is, just spending even 15 minutes to say, all right, I'm going to spend 15 minutes. And part of the value that I get from Twitter is that it is an extraordinarily valuable source of information through the people that I choose to follow. These are people who actually go and do all the hard work for me. They find the most interesting things, and I can just scan, a handful of people who are and what they are looking at to be able to uncover the most interesting information. And so I think Twitter has a great deal of value, but a great starting point for it is simply to follow a few people that are good and interesting and surface some of that information and find what is they're pointing to. They're doing this, spending their hours a day to find that, and they only share what is most relevant information to you. So, that's part of what I don't tweet a lot, as in average of 8 tweets a day, which is I think because I'm selective. I see lots and lots and lots of interesting things, but I'm only trying to share the things that I think are going to be of interest to others. And there are other people like that. I don't think you want to follow people that have 100 tweets a day. You do want to follow people that have a shorter one. And as Kevin Bacon, act in a film, and you'll be connected to him.
Fantastic. Another question in the front here. On the table captains, there's one over there.
Thanks, Ross. I guess what came out of our discussion that we had following your session was that the real question is how can we co-create value for clients? And we really do appreciate the disruption, but I guess again the question comes that, how are we going to close out that and provide the solution to clients? And to our way of thinking, a lot of it comes from lowering costs, and certainly the cost of technology was a great point in your slide, and that's something that we really need to leverage off. What we thought though was that we would decide to be a tea team, not coffee, that the answers were in technology, efficiency and activity. Would you concur with that, or what do you think?
I'd say that's part of it. Certainly having efficient processes, amongst other things, for a small team means that you've got time to do the important things, spending time with people. So it also means that, for example, part of those technology processes can be in personalizing the information. That's for a long time when I've been engaged with financial advisors. That's what I'm saying. One of the most important things you can do with technology means that you can very quickly say, I can understand the way this person thinks, can understand the way they like information presented, can understand the situation, and like that, I've got something which is relevant to them. It is important to personalize, but that has to be something which is very easy. So the technology being efficient in terms of processes, which partly is cost, partly is freeing up your time to do the important things of being with and building strong relationships. Part of it is having the technology processes that can create that personalization, create that unique value for the individual. So the co-creation of value is, as you say, this is where the technology becomes an enabler, a layer, which frees you up to engage. And I still think the nub of that co-creation of value in the financial advice situation is in that making decisions together, working with them to be able to be better at making financial decisions. That's where you're truly building a partnership with them and becoming a partner with them in their life. It's a journey, and that's a relationship. Every relationship is being eroded. So the only way to treat relationships is say, how can we continue to build a deep relationship over time? And then part of the issue then, of course, is choosing which ones you're going to focus on. So in this path of client leadership, where you're leading people into these knowledge-based relationships, you do have to make some choices. There are some people where you can invest lots of time and it's not going to create value for yourself. And you do need to focus, make those decisions, and technology can help in this, to be able to say, these are the people I'm going to focus on in my time, working with them, helping, making better decisions for them, and that technology then becomes a platform that it frees you up to do that.
Very good. We still have time for a couple more tables, a couple more up the back, one more over here, one more over on the side. We have anybody come up there for the questions? One of the tables, and one over here.
Well, these are big questions, big issues, and they are absolutely critical issues. So we are not as good at mental arithmetic as we were because we have calculators. And is this a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, I don't think it's that bad because we do have the calculators there. There is an increasing dependence on technology, and we do need to understand that. Yet that dependence on technology, or that use of technology, enables us to be more. And this is this human augmentation of capabilities through technology, which is the space we are entering. We are becoming more as humans through the use of technologies. So it is a little of a different issue as to whether the machines will take over. And this is something which is certainly not on the near to medium term horizon. Though in the big perspective, I in fact think that the reason we don't need to worry about the machines taking over is that we will be the machines. We are truly looking at becoming cyborgs, at merging with machines. Again, these are sort of big questions, but one of the social divides that will emerge will be those who choose to say, I will augment myself with technology. I will get memory chips implanted or whatever it may be to be able to extend my capabilities. And there are some people who will say, no, that's not for me. I want to be as I was born. And the reality is those people who choose to follow that path of augmenting themselves with technology will have massively more advantages, massively more opportunities than those that don't. So these are some of the choices we will face moving forward.
Cool. One last one. Anywhere in the room? All said and done. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big round of applause for Ross Dawson and his fabulous.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, here's the interesting thing. Some people saw all that presentation and all of the data, and the real trick there is to work out where are the opportunities. Where would you place your bets? There's 1,000 different things that you can do to grow your business and to give you the success and the possibility